So previously we have covered the four principles in writing a compelling narrative of your paper, which are the rootedness, number one, directionality, connectedness, and consistency. So next, we're going to look at a few examples on the elements of style and writing. So how to write smartly, and I have a few references to recommend at the end of this session. So let's start with this paragraph. I want you guys to read the first sentence and write in the chat what is wrong with this opening session. Sorry, not session, hopefully not this session, paragraph, okay? With the opening paragraph. So take a minute, read it, and tell me how you feel, guys, about it. So to be able to diagnose a sentence properly, you need to think about a better way of rewriting it. So how can you rewrite it better? How can you fix it? All right, so is it fixable? Is it improvable? If you can improve it, it means that maybe there are a few, issues with the sentence, right? So to improve it, what should you do? You need to think about different things that you may do to fix or, revise a sentence. And by doing so, you may be able to identify what is wrong with it. Okay? It's not clear from what, right? So lack of clarity, that's a very good point. Thank you. There is a lack of clarity here. So the functional outcome of ischemic stroke patients is dependent on the viability of the brain structural region undergoing hyperperfusion, however, at risk of infarction, which is called the penumbra. So, and there's an order, right? So it's like, please keep your microphone off, everybody here. Yeah, thank you. So here, basically, the order of the words is not right. It's kind of complicated. It's like you're projecting, or you're talking about different things, and you're defining at the right at the wrong moment. Like here, you're defining the penumbra at the very end, right? So let's look at how can we write this better. So here, the functional outcome. So you start with the outcome. So when you start with the functional outcome, right, of ischemic stroke patients dependent on, it means what this gives me a sense of directionality. So very important. Remember, guys, your first sentence will point to what you're trying to solve. So when I read this sentence, and the object of the sentence is not ischemic stroke, is not, for example, image, is functional outcome, and it is dependent on something. So the meaning that the direction that it gives me on the paper, that you're going to probably propose a solution, or you're going to investigate the functional outcome. So that's your area of research. You're going to focus on the functional outcome. So I know you're going to that, right? So this, as I mentioned, it gives you a sense of directionality and where you want to get at. And it's emphasized because it's an object here, right? It's a subject here, sorry. I said object earlier. Apologies. It's a subject, okay? So it's an object of interest, and it is the subject of the sentence. So here, there is also another word which is dependent on. So it's better to change, replace this with a dynamic verb. So this is passive, right? So dynamic verb would be depends on. So that's how you improve the writing. So I'm just going to give you a tip here, diagnosing this sentence. So the first thing is, like, we know that in this sentence, the focus should be on the functional outcome. This is, a form that can be further improved by using dynamic active verbs, such as depends on. The word structural here is not very clear, so it's a jargon word. Some people may not know what it is. A structural region, just saying, okay? There are, of course, some clinical terms such as hyperperfusion, penumbra. However, at risk of infarction, of what is at risk of infarction, right? So it's not clear. Is it, what is it? What is the object here? So it's like the writing is very confusing. It's unclear. and which is called the penumbra. So here it should refer to this item, which is ambiguous, right? So ambiguity is the worst thing that you can stimulate or into a reader, right? So it's not good to make the reader feel ambiguous, and lack of clarity is the worst thing, as I mentioned. So you want to give clarity, you want to give, you know, flow, a flowy writing, and also a focused directional writing. So let's try to revise this together. So here, this is the paper that was published, the paper that has been published. So I rewrote this to make it worse, so myself. And then what was published is this blue sentence. So in this blue sentence, the subject is the target brain tissue. Very important. So now we changed from the functional outcome to the target brain tissue. So the first sentence gives me the impression that your paper, your methodology will focus on the functional outcome. The second version gives me the impression that your emphasis, your direction, is actually the target brain tissue, the tissue of reperfusion therapy. So the tissue that you want to save. So when you have an ischemic stroke, you have a blood vessel or artery that is occluded, and when it is occluded, the tissue around it starts to die, right? So that's, you know, like what we call the penumbra. So the tissue is not fully dead, it could be reperfused, it could be saved. And here in this paper, they're going to focus on that tissue that we want to save, okay? So not necessarily the functional outcome, which is, by the way, somehow correlated, but not across all studies, to the functional outcome in the previous sentence. But what we want to focus on is this tissue, right? The target brain tissue of reperfusion therapy in ischemic stroke, known as the ischemic penumbra. So now we define it here in the right order. So previously we put it here. So the, you know, regional undergoing hyperfusion at risk of infarction, which is called the penumbra. So here it's very confusing, right? So the way you order your words is vital. You can have the same sentence, just changing the order in which you write and you put your words can transform your sentence fully. It can move it from ambiguity to full clarity. Okay, so it's important to know how to order your words and your verbs. So, and where to put the emphasis, as I mentioned, the subject. So here, can improve. So here we're focusing on improving this, you know, target brain tissue, the penumbra. It can improve the patient functional outcome if salvaged early despite the existing risk of death. All right. So there is the if, there is, you know, verb improve, despite. So there are many prepositions here that are used throughout this sentence. It's a bit long. It's a good sentence, but you can see that now it's way, you know, much clearer than the first one. Okay. So right. So I'm going to ask you a question. So I want you to tell me here. So when we say that can improve the patient functional outcome, do you feel that the functional outcome is the most important thing, or what they want to focus on? So that's actually the result. So the outcome of this, you know, saving the tissue. So the crux or the heart or the focus of this paper is on the penumbra and its importance. And if we learn how this penumbra evolves or, you know, like kind of shrinks, we can identify the outcome, something like that. So this is what I mentioned earlier about sense of directionality and order. So the order in which you put your words, sentences also together can simplify a complex sentence and draw the focus of the reader to what matters most. And ambiguity, what is the penumbra? Do we have a clear definition? Well, here we do. Okay, so earlier was very ambiguous, but here we do, because this is the tissue that can be salvaged despite the existing risk of death. So it could be, it can die completely and go into necrosis, but here it could be saved. All right. So now another example. What's wrong with this opening paragraph? So I want you to read this paragraph and tell me, how do you guys feel? So take a few minutes to read this and write your feelings. And And if you understand what the paper is about, directionality, rootedness, references, directionality, where is it going? Do you see that the subject of interest, which problems to solve directly from the beginning? Connectedness and consistency, the 4 principles. Okay, guys. Anybody here? Yeah, what about the others? What do you guys feel? How do you guys feel when reading this? It's disconnected. Yeah, the problem is not very clearly articulated. Yeah. Thank you. So you can see, to thoroughly understand, so thoroughly you can remove it. To understand, thoroughly understand, you can remove it. So as I mentioned earlier, whatever you can remove, okay, it's not rooted also. It's uprooted because you have only 2 references and a very long, first paragraph. And the second paragraph, starting with although, has no references. Okay, so it's uprooted. It's not well rooted. And also it doesn't have a sense of directionality. You don't know where it's actually going precisely. And it started with referencing papers or completely different other methods, okay? So here, if you diagnose the first sentences, so the first sentence, thoroughly here, you can remove it completely. It's clutter. So even if you want to use adjectives, you really need to use them where appropriate. And as I mentioned earlier, the first rule is that if a sentence, you can remove it, or a word, you can remove it, and your paragraph will still make sense, okay? Or your sentence, if you're removing a word, will still make sense, then remove it. It means it's completely useless. And there's what we call also plug and play sentences. Oh my God, these are the worst. I hate them when I see them. I literally don't like them, because plug and play sentences are very generic sentences that you can integrate with any text on deep learning papers or on medical imaging papers, and they're very, very generic. You can just put them anywhere. So you need to be careful. You're talking about a specific topic. You need to be specific. You need to be very focused. And if you find plug and play sentences, it means the full sentence, you can take it out, put it anywhere else. You can take it out and it does not change the heart of your paper, the narrative, the structure, the goal of your paper, your contributions. Just take it out, okay? So here it's talking about, okay, to thoroughly understand the brain and how it works, being able to detect small alterations in the brain topology is a requirement. Requirement here is not good. So you need to use dynamic word. It's not actually a requirement. Like the English is not incorrect, but the scientific writing is fully incorrect, okay? So also there is redundancy in passive sentences, yes. Therefore, there have been multiple attempts of research which require either costly solutions such as MRI or an efficient computational algorithm, which which try to utilize MR images. Redundancy also. I don't understand what's the problem they're trying to solve. And the second one, it got me even more confused. If the first sentence got me confused, the second one even more confused, and this is even, so you don't want to do that at all, okay? So here, for instance, 3 different computational methods in morphometry. So the word morphometry comes up here first time, the word topology here. So if the paper is focusing on morphometry and topology, should be from the first 2 sentences, well-defined and well articulated, okay? So a few things are mentioned here randomly, and then you have disparateness. I don't know why this word is in italic. So if you emphasize, it means it's important or very, very, it's innovative, something that you're going to fix, you're going to tackle, right? So yes, a recent work talking about spectrograph analysis, predicting a disease or not. So classification, random morphology, morphometry, random topology, nothing is connected. I don't see where it's going. I have completed the reading of the first paragraph and I have no idea what this paper is about. This is the worst thing you can ever do to a reader. Okay, from the first two sentences to the end of this paragraph. Now, let's look at this rewriting. So I would like you guys to take a minute and read this, 2 minutes, and tell me if you understand what this is about. Okay, guys, so of course this could be further improved, but do you see the point? You see at least now the context, which is, you know, network neuroscience, right? Where we represent the brain as a graph or a network. And then we see that this network is really highly complex, right? Especially, you know, in disordered brains, and it's difficult to pin the connectomic or edge changes between different regions in the brain. And that basically there are several challenges to understanding the brain graph and how it changes with disorders, let alone the brain multigraph. So what is a multigraph? Here it's in italic, we define it. And the multigraph is basically composed of different graphs, and each graph will capture a particular view of the brain system, such as morphology or function, okay? So now what the paper is focusing on, so here by introducing, putting a context, explaining a challenge, defining the terms, the paper focuses on profiling brain multigraphs, trying to discover the disorder profile by examining what we call a brain multigraph in a population, right? So now it's fully clear. Do you see any connection between these? Almost none, okay? And this is a true story. So now moving up next. So this is the paper, the first figure that was proposed for this paper. So it has a lot of issues. First, what do you guys notice? The colors, okay, I'm not gonna talk about aesthetics. I will spend probably 15 minutes on that. But let's look at mathematical issues, not mathematical, logical issues. For example, the redundancy. There are so many, a lot of redundancy. Copy paste, first iteration, second, etc. You don't need the second actually here. You just need one, and then the last one you put dots. Also, I don't understand what is going on. These four elements are completely disconnected. A, B, C, D. I don't understand how this heat profile is exactly derived from this one. The colors are not really nice. This is a copy paste from maybe a paper. It's really bad. It's not handmade. I don't understand the connection between this brain, these, so these are different views of the same brain. But then you have this box, the red box, and the matrices. I don't understand the relationship between the matrices. The relation between the matrices and these, okay? Now, this is how it was redone completely. And you guys can see how, you know, like this makes a huge difference, okay? Between these two. Okay, so let's look at this. So here you see a population of brain multigraphs. So you have GS, so this is the mathematical symbol that was defined in the paper. G1 is the first multigraph of subject one. GS, I think it's a different subject multigraph. So brain multigraph representation actually for subject I. So these are different graphs. And you have, this is the multigraph of a single subject. And here you have a multigraph consisting of different views, okay? So this is, each multigraph here is actually this one. So you can see that G1 here is actually a multigraph. It's this whole green box that is unfolded or expanded here. And beautifully, you can see that GI is actually the different graphs for subject I, or the different brain graphs, so functional connectivity, morphological connectivity, etc. Now B, let's see if we can read this. Subject-specific multigraph sparsification. So you have here the different graphs, G1 to GM. This is a multigraph, and a multigraph is defined as a set of matrices concatenated or superimposed together that defines a tensor. So here you have W1 to WM. This is the matrix of this brain graph, okay? You see the nodes and the edges, and this is of the green one. So here we define these properly, but it's sparsified. That's why it's not fully equal. It's we have this, semi symbol here because we sparsified the graph. It means we removed the negative values, or we kept we zeroed many elements in the matrix. So if the matrix is sparse, okay? Now C, what is happening to C? So we have what we call multigraph cross-diffusion and integration using eigencentrality. So we have here the matrices that are derived from the data. So these are the brain matrices of a single subject, sparse views of a subject multigraph. So you put the text below, you explain what it is, right? So without reading the figure, without reading the caption, I can understand. If I read the caption, that would be even better. So A and B are not connected directly. So the A defines the data, and B actually expands more because here we manage the space. So here it puts a mathematical definition. So we added sparsification here. So this is not sparse. I'm answering a question. Here it's sparsification, and we added these visual symbols because here we could have added it right here. So of course, guys, you can always improve and optimize your figures. So you may think that, you may propose or suggest that we put these below these ones. You say why we're wasting space here, okay? You can put an arrow here if you want, and you can copy paste this here, and you say sparsification, and it all is good. And you can enlarge this box, the red one, and use more space there. So that's another. So this also was about arranging and optimizing your space using PowerPoint. All of these figures were made using PPT, okay? All right, now you can see that we use the eigen matrix, the inverse of the eigencentrality matrices. We multiply by this too. So you of course you need to understand methodologically why we're doing that. I don't have time to go over this in detail, but the idea, you're doing some weighting here, you're getting a new representation, which we call status matrices, and then we're using these status matrices. You can see here these two boxes, they're connected. So these guys are actually now used as subjects, and we're going to do a cross diffusion across different subjects, and you'll find a different a final matrix right here. So you're doing a fusion of the data across different views. And yeah, so all of this will be explained in detail in the methods section, section C. Sorry, and then yeah, so then we have E, which is subject heat trace profiling and classification. And this actually also could be, we have D. So D is heat tracing of integrated multigraphs. So we take the same color here. Look, guys, we use exactly the same symbols, and we are changing slightly the colors of the nodes. So because we are doing diffusion here, so something is changing in the data across time. Within this graph is diffusion within the graph, the brain graph that we estimated using this block. And after we get this graph, we have actually the heat trace profile. And you can see these points right here are the heat trace profile, which are plotted in this curve. So everything is very clear from T0 to T infinity. So T0, you start with this value, which is right here, and you progress. And actually, I haven't read this paper in, I think, like 5 years or so. I forgot when it was published. But you can see that at least you can get a glimpse of what's going on by reading this figure, and that's how you know it's a good figure. Okay. Now, I want you also, so I'm not going to go over this because there has been a lot of works on this. So this is another example where you see it's not well rooted. You have 4 references here, you have 10. And this is a big, huge paragraph, okay? So it's one big paragraph, so many sentences. We broke it down into 2 blocks or 2 paragraphs, right? And then you can see that here, basically, you guys, we have a better structure and a better rootedness of this paper. Okay, cool. This is also another example. So another example here shows that it's really cool to choose a cool title, right? So it's important to choose a cool title for your paper. Many you know, authors, they completely overlook the title. The title is like actually what you are you know, is what the bait you're using to engage the reader. And it's important to choose a very catchy and simple, I would say, title. So here, this was a paper published in 2021 by one of my undergraduate students, former undergraduate students. And it was also an extension of a MICCAI paper, I think 2020. So yeah, so which got an early accept. So this paper is, you know, like it's a nice example also to follow in writing. It starts out with, you know, contextualization. We revised it multiple times. And yeah, revision is very important in writing. So choosing a cool title is important. And during the revision of this paper, you can see my comments here. So justify your intuition rationale. However, we foresee that both that given both node and edge features, MGN, our method, will output more comprehensive templates. Why? Why are you hypothesizing that? So you need to justify first, or, you know, like the rationale or the intuition behind this. And in many MICCAI papers, you see people or like researchers proposing things, but not explaining why they're proposing these components or why they're using existing components. You're using skip connections. Why you're using skip connections, you need to justify, right? Even if everybody is using them. So sometimes you really need to reiterate things. You need to reiterate rationale because you know, it's important. It's you know, like fundamental to your logical construct of the paper. Okay. Another comment here, you overuse this verb, which is obtain. So in the paper, the author overuses the word obtain. So I said, like, you can replace it with learn, for example. You should use more dynamic and compelling verbs. So you need to extend your vocabulary. Always recall the motivation before presenting the solution. So before you say, we present a topology, the topology constraint normalization loss function to evaluate whatever, okay? So before you say what you present, explain why. So this is also rationale, logic, intuition. As I explained in the on the iPad demo, you guys need to first articulate your why and then present your how or your what, okay? So this applies to all constituents of your proposed solution. The first component, okay, so check, okay, your English carefully, many typos and mistakes. So you need to also make sure that you don't have typos and mistakes. That's another thing. So oh, sorry, I was reading of that. I forgot that I emphasized them. Okay, so I'm stopping the reading here. I stopped here because I felt that, well, all of these need to be fixed first, okay? And the rest of the paper needs to be revised accordingly in this first round of revision. So write with style. How can I become a stylish writer? And this is an important question. We all strive to become stylish writers, and it's a lifelong process. You always improve. You keep on learning. It never ends. But you gotta start somewhere. We need to start somewhere. Yeah. So first, I would recommend all of you guys to prepare a compilation of best paper writing. So you select the best papers that you feel, oh, these papers are really well written. I love how they're written. I love this sentence. I love this verb. I love this, you know, argument, this logical connection, right? So here I color coded. I think orange is introduction. This one could be method or some discussion. So this is new vocabulary. So you can color code depending on the meaning. So you can say, I will assign a color to maybe the intro sentences, the sentences that can be used in the introduction, or you can do it verb-wise, okay? So preparing this is very important, and it depends. For each project, you may want to prepare a new document, because if you're writing for a journal paper that is clinical, or if you're writing to a particular domain, you need to master the vocabulary of that domain. So if you're writing on federated learning, you need to read many papers on federated learning and pick up all the good sentences that describe technically, like, and methodologically these, this learning paradigm. Also, how to connect different components, context, applications, right? So having this kind of LaTeX file where you're reading and you're rewriting and color coding is a treasure that you can build. It's a writing portfolio of your best papers, your best verbs, your best sentences. And having this ready is so good because, well, you need to be wary of plagiarism. You're not going to copy paste the whole sentence, but you can see how you can connect different words. For example, here, our results advance our understanding of how. This is plug and play, okay? But it's half a sentence. So when I spoke about, and I mentioned earlier, plug and play sentences, I meant full sentences, but you can use these to write or to blend it with your context. For example, our results advance our understanding of how convolutions in graph neural networks, that is concordant with increasing, is concordant with, the memory overhead, whatever. So you can always use some parts without any plagiarism, and you can use these beautiful, parts that is concordant with. Our evaluations demonstrate, the word demonstrate, across scales of, easily translated to, right? Here we propose a novel inspired by seminal, but so far largely neglected models. So this is a beautiful also sentence that you can use in your writing. Okay, so it's hard work. Nothing is easy. So you need to spend time to improve your writing, and you work on it, and you improve as you prepare these things, and you prepare the background material for your paper before you start writing it up. Okay, so create a compilation of best stylish scientific papers. You can categorize them according to the article type and color sentences or paragraphs depending on where they can go in the paper. So example here, orange for introduction. And you got this, you can do it. So this is an example here so I'm going to highlight this. These experiments were complemented with a comprehensive battery of robustness and replication analysis. So this is actually a bit, I would say this whole part here is a bit pompous, honestly speaking. It's beautifully written, but you can always use what you feel is right, and tone down the overly beautified writing, I would say. Okay, so you need to strike a balance, and it's up to you. So you may think that, oh, I can just use the whole thing, it's fine. But for me, I would remove, because there is a lot of abstract nouns. There's, for example, experiments, robustness, battery, analysis, all these. It's a lot of abstraction, consistency, and generalizability. So up to here, and even here, choices excluding this word, which is what they're proposing, all of this is plug and play, right? So I may want to tone it down on, or focus it on using some specific technical terms or clinical terms for my paper, okay? So it's too much for me, but it's still beautiful. Regional variation, so this one, okay, so this is from the paper. So specific, highlight the necessity of something, so you can use this also to provide a nuanced and expressive, so that's a beautiful thing also, but you need to use it appropriately. You do not just copy paste, and you don't have actually nuanced, and you don't have actually expressive. So whatever you're doing needs to be expressive, and whatever you're providing needs actually to be nuanced. Okay, cool. So yeah, so the Mikai paper one is asked the template. The LaTeX is available on the website. If you go to Mikai paper submission on the website, you will find the LaTeX template of Mikai. Or if you go to Overleaf and write Mikai NeurIPS, you'll find the templates available on Overleaf. Just Google Overleaf and you find so many LaTeX templates. Okay. Yeah, so these are other examples. Conclusion section are in line. So the conclusions are in line with recent work showing that one key feature of the present method or framework is that it provides a basis, to do something, okay? Bridging across, we provide. So these are all sentences that you can use in your writing and integrate with your writing. Now, ChatGPT, who is writing? So we get to the point where now we need to be wary and careful when we're using LLMs, large language models, when we're writing papers. So you can definitely leverage ChatGPT or any other LLM, right, online to enhance your writing, but not to write for you. So it's very important, especially when you are a beginner. When you're not, a well-versed writer, and you're using ChatGPT to write for you, that could completely ruin your career for now in writing and authorship. And imagine if one day, this whole platform or internet collapses, you won't be able to write a sentence or express yourself properly, communicate properly, right? Because you have let ChatGPT write for you, these LLM models write for you. And language is something that is really important for humans, humanity, for our species. So as part of our self-preservation, we need to preserve our language and our writing styles and improve them, so you can use ChatGPT or LLM to improve your writing, to get you started in terms of proofreading, right? But not to write for you. So if you are a very good writer and you wanted to write for you, and ethically it is allowed in terms of let's say you want to submit it somewhere and they say, oh, you are allowed to use ChatGPT to write your article. So if that is allowed, if the rules allow you to use it, you can use it if you are a master. But if you're not a master, do not use it, because it will actually ChatGPT has been trained very well using billions and billions of parameters, and your brain has not been trained well to write properly. So you need to focus on, prioritize on your training, rather the training of a machine that will assist you in writing. Okay, so be careful of that. It's a very kind of I know we are lazy by nature, and these LLMs will kind of, are an easy bait because we want things to be done quickly. So be careful and conscious on how to use this technology, okay, for your good and not for your, how you say, for your, there is a word, I forgot what it's called. Yeah, for your detriment, if I can say, okay? So yeah, so train your master writer brain and do not be enslaved to ChatGPT or LLM in general. ChatGPT can be used in exciting, I use it all the time. I use it too. I mean, not all the time, but I do use it a lot. And I use it as a source of information and as a search engine. It's way more powerful than Google. It gives you so many things when you use it for research and discovering, what is there, what is not there. Like recently, I was reading a book on eels. It's called, I think, the Bible of Eels. Called Bible, yes, the Gospel of Eels. The book is so interesting. So it's documenting how eels were, were thought of as not even creatures, that they Plato thought that it emerged from mud, and there were so many metaphysical questions about the existence of eels and how they came about, like where did they come from, right? So what is the origin of eels? And for me, it was a very interesting topic because it was the first time that I read a scientific, like a memoir book by a writer who searched eels for years and documented beautifully eels from different angles, from philosophy, metaphysics, from fishing, eating, from different perspectives. And then what I did is, like, I went to ChatGPT and I prompted with different multimodal questions, like, how, like, for example, I forgot what I asked it, but it was like something about, eels and how they're connected to metaphysics. What is the the history of how they came about. And it was so interesting. Of course, the book was much better in terms of details, because I gave so many detailed questions based on my reading. I don't think that ChatGPT had access to the book. But yeah, but anyways, it gave me some interesting answers about metaphysics and philosophy and, eels and these things that I thought that you will never connect two things that easily. Like, the connection will not come to your mind. And what I find fascinating about ChatGPT is that if you ask it if you try to connect two things that are far away, right, you may discover that they're actually connected in a way. And it's so interesting. And it pulls for you all data, right? So that's asking very, very intriguing and crazy questions will get you to unknown territory. And that's something really nice about this AI tool. So anyways, so disseminating your research to a public audience, a lay audience, you can use it also to write for a lay audience. Like, its writing is not very, very scientific, although you can prompt it to, and it's going to get better, of course. But anyways, yeah, so you can use it positively, but beware, be careful when using it. That's what I'm saying, just to conclude this part. So let us try it together and see how creative ChatGPT gets. So if you guys are using ChatGPT, you can write this, for example: suggest diverse ways in which an AI researcher can use, oh, there is a typo here, sorry guys, ChatGPT to improve their writing skills and research. So this is something you can write. And you can prompt ChatGPT to answer your question. So this is what it gave me. So I know that I spent maybe an hour and a half now, like about 2 hours on this. But when I prompted it after I prepared my material, I found all of these, like content enhancement, proofreading, research synthesis, idea generation, okay, clarifying complex ideas. So this is how you can use it to improve your writing skills and research as an AI researcher. And there are so many ideas. Of course, they are very vague, okay? But they could be some starting points, and it's good to ask it and prompt it properly. So there is a whole science now called LLM prompting. So yeah, anyways. Now, getting to the ethical issues. So this was a message I shared with my students. When writing their papers, you need to be very careful. There is an EU AI Act approved for negotiation by European Parliament, and the legislation imposes stringent transparency requirements on generative AI systems like ChatGPT, compelling them to disclose, which means include AI-generated content, and to avoid creating illegal content, okay? So you need to be very careful when using this, and ignorance is not a bliss here. So you need to kind of, read the new rules and updates on Gen AI or generative AI, including large language models, and how, the law basically views them, and what are the AI policies emerging or developing around these areas in general. Okay, and the easiest way, when you submit to a journal, you will see the author guidelines, and usually there would be a section on LLMs and generative text models. So for better education, the UNESCO guide, they said they published this. It's a really nice book to read. I really recommend that you guys Google it. The link is right here, by the way. But if you Google ChatGPT and artificial intelligence in higher education, UNESCO 2020, UNESCO, I think it was published. Yeah, so Education 23. You'll find the textbook, the PDF file, and you can read it. So here they mentioned that readers are advised to constantly check reliable sources for their latest news and updates. So reliability, fairness, transparency. Misinformation is a big threat also these days because of these LLM models and other things. So for a better education, you can use the AI to improve education, of course. You can have a study buddy. You can use it as a motivator. There are so many startups using already LLMs, to develop such products, right? And play these roles a role of a study buddy, like when AI helps the student reflect on learning material. Motivator offers games and challenges to extend learning, right? So there are so many good points. But yeah, so reading on this is very important because I believe that the education, the way we educate the future generations and even this one will differ dramatically.